Hello everybody, this is Krista. Welcome back to the channel today. And today we are going to talk about bone broth. I've made several videos that have used bone broths as my bases, but this video is how to make those bases. I wanted to do this separate, but we're also going to talk about how affordable this is. Now, we raise our own chickens and my father raises cattle. So we are not paying the same prices that you would pay at the store, although I would dare say that our meat's probably actually more expensive because of the time and food and everything that we put into our meat, but it's about knowing where it's from. However, I'm going to give you the cheap way to do this. So the first thing is I'm cooking 2 small chickens. These are not very big. I think one was like 3.5, 4 pounds. One was close to 5 pounds. But they are not super big chickens. Now, if you go to the store, you can get an already cooked rotisserie chicken for about $5.97. I know Costco has them for less than $5. Those are loss leaders. Those are what stores use to get you into the store so that you'll buy other things. So they don't make any profit on those. They actually lose money on those. However, you can get a whole chicken for about $1.32 a pound. That's like a Purdue price at Walmart. And so 5 pounds is going to be about $6.60. 10 pounds would be about $13.20. But if that's a little bit much, you could get the 10-pound bag of leg quarters for $8.47, and that works just as good for the bones and the meat. And dark meat actually crock pots better, slow cooks better than the white meat anyway. So that's a way to do it for super cheap. But I was aiming for just under 10 pounds. Like I said, one of my chickens was really small. So I think I have a total of 8 pounds here of meat when I'm done. But you go ahead and cook it overnight or all day while you're at work or whatever. Slow cook for about 8 hours. And then, and I didn't really add anything to this. I think I put a little bit of salt in the water. And that's really it. I keep my broth super simple. A lot of people will go ahead and add a lot of flavoring, but I'm going to add flavoring to the dishes. So I want to keep my broth very simple. So I'm deboning this chicken, which means I'm just trying to get all the meat that I can off of this chicken. And then I am going to take the bones, and you don't really see that right here, but you take the bones and put them on a baking sheet. You can use parchment paper. I think I had aluminum foil so that it's super easy clean up. And you're going to roast those. So once you do this, you can actually do the process of not roasting the bones, but crock potting the bones in water twice. And I recommend cooking it for about 24 hours. You can drain those bones out, get all that broth, and then put the bones back in with more water and apple cider vinegar and do it all again. 2 times is about the extent and the life of the bones that you're going to get. But that is a whole lot of broth from less than 10 pounds of chicken bones. And the same with beef. So anytime you're making it, if you want to get a lot of meals, like say you have a family of 4 to 5 like we do, go ahead and utilize those bones and get a lot of broth. So off of this 1 pan of bones, chicken bones, if I do it twice in the 7-8 quart crock pot, I'm going to get 16 quarts of broth. That's a lot of meals. So I'm also, while I'm doing this, I am doing beef broth as well. So once I've set the chicken bones aside, I'm pulling out a bag of soup bones. Now, you can get the marrow bones. You can get the marrow bones at Walmart. I wrote that. It's about $3.42 a pound. So the average pack is about $4.55 because it's a little bit over a pound. These are not really the marrow bones. These are just like beef short rib bones that have been scraped or whatever for ground. And I do add a little bit of olive oil when I'm roasting them. But once you've roasted them, I'm taking the chicken bones that I reserved, that like 1 inch of broth stuff that was in the bottom of the crock pot, and I'm putting the bones back in that because that's got a lot of that like skin oil and stuff like that in it, and I want that flavor. So I'm adding the roasted bones, and you just roast your bones for about 45 minutes in a 450-degree oven. That part does not take long at all. So I'm putting the bones back into that little bit of broth from where I roasted the chicken overnight. And then you're going to add some apple cider vinegar. Now, apple cider vinegar, the reason you add that is the acidity in it helps break down the connective tissue in those bones. And so that's going to release your collagen and your gelatin, and it's going to give you a richer, thicker, more flavorful broth. So you're getting all that nutrition and everything out of those bones. Now, bone broth is actually really good for a few reasons. And rather than just using like the water from where you cook the chicken, doing it this way is going to give you a lot more nutrition, because not only do you get the collagen, but the collagen protein is really good for like joint inflammation. So it supports joint structure and reduces the inflammation. The gelatin can help improve digestion. And there's also glutamine, which is an amino acid, and that can help strengthen your gut lining. And in addition to that, this bone broth is going to have nutritious aspects like calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, and potassium. So there's a really good reason to do this extra step to get that bone broth, because you're going to add not only a ton of flavor, but a ton of nutrition and benefits to your meals by doing this step. Now, these bones, because they had a little bit of meat left on them, I did try to strip some of the meat, but then I got kind of tired of handling the hot bones, and I just wanted to be done with it. So I think I didn't really get a lot of meat off of them. Now, I will say beef marrow, I have used the beef marrow bones, but not when I was recording this video. It definitely has a stronger smell. No one else noticed it. I noticed it. And it is very thick. So just an FYI if you were cooking with that. Now, this is by itself a cheap, nutritious. You can drink bone broth. It is very good for you. However, it is also the base of so many soups and stews, as you've seen from my recent videos. But instead of water, you can also use it when you're cooking rice, when you're cooking stuffing, when you're cooking grits or quinoa or any of these other things. And so you can, for very, very cheap, you can pack your meals with flavor with just a little bit of extra step. And I'm showing on the video here, the bone broth is the exact same for the beef as it is for the chicken. You add a little apple cider vinegar. I like to add just a little bit of salt, but again, I keep my sodium very low as well. And then fill it up with water and cook it for 12 to 36 hours. I prefer right there in the middle, around 24 to 32, just because I try to do these late afternoon and let them cook through to the next day, all the way to the next evening. So anyway, what I did, because right now there seems to be a ton of issues with people affording food, whether that is because of job loss, of economy, of prices going up, of not receiving certain benefits. And so what I did is I priced some of these things out at Walmart, because I feel like Walmart is fairly universal. You can find these things cheaper at places like Aldi or Save-A-Lot if you have some of those stores near to you. But I felt Walmart was pretty universal, so I priced everything at Walmart online. And I've already given you the prices of the chicken and the beef. So what you can do, let's say you do this 2 times. So you're going to have all this broth. You're going to have 2 batches of broth per your beef bones and your chicken bones. So if you go to the store, let's take the chicken first. And we're going to make a soup, a very filling, nutritious soup. It's cold, it's winter, soup stretches a lot. So we're looking at a family of 4 to 5. So you can take the meat that you pulled from that chicken, and you can add celery, which for a bundle of celery at the store is $1.97. a pound of carrots is $1.32. A pound of noodles is 98 cents. One onion averages out to 91 cents. And then a garlic bulb is 72 cents. And you can use 1 to 2 cloves of that garlic bulb for each meal. So that garlic bulb is going to stretch through all of the meals that we're fixing to talk about. So then you take, you saute up your celery and your carrots, your onion, your garlic. You cook your noodles in the broth and add that chicken, and you instantly have chicken soup. Now we're going to take it one step further because you've got more broth, and we're going to get a head of cabbage for $2.66, a can of diced tomatoes for 96 cents, a can of beans for 92 cents, another onion for 91 cents. We've already got the garlic because we're just using some cloves from that one bulb, and then a sweet potato for 77 cents average. You're going to cook all that in the other broth and make a vegetable cabbage soup. So you're getting your protein from your broth and from your beans. So there's 2 hearty soups that's going to be enough for 4 to 5 people, plus leftovers possibly. Pair it with some sandwiches if you need more. But that alone, and you're still going to have broth left over, that's $20.59, which includes the meat and the bones and everything. I mean, I'm assuming you have salt, pepper, apple cider vinegar at home because those are like pantry staples. So that's not included in the price. Now we're going to take your 2 batches of beef broth. And beef is very expensive right now. So since we're getting the flavor of the beef in that bone broth, we're just going to use some ground turkey. Ground turkey is like the cheapest meat right now. So you can get the frozen Carolina ground turkey 1 pound for $1.98 in the freezer section. You can get a pound of rice for 92 cents, just under a pound of broccoli for about $1.85, fresh broccoli, and you can get soy sauce for $1.58 for, a bottle. If you have it, great. I keep soy sauce on hand, but that's one thing that I'm not going to assume everybody has. Turn my alarm off here. So now you can cook that rice in that beef broth. You can cook up that turkey with a little beef broth, add some of that garlic. You can add another onion for 91 cents. Roast your broccoli. You can even roast the broccoli and the onion and the garlic together in the oven. Make it super simple. Cook that ground turkey, add it all together, and now you've got like a beef and broccoli Asian style dish to give you something a little bit different for very, very little money. Now take another batch of that beef broth and add another can of tomatoes. And since tomato juice can be very expensive, we're going to take a $1.06 can of tomato paste and whisk it with water to make tomato juice. It'll be fine. It's going to pack a bunch of flavor for a lot cheaper than buying tomato juice. And then you're going to get a 5-pound bag of potatoes, russet potatoes. Boil them, chop, dice, boil some up, with or without peel. That's your preference. $2.47 for a 5-pound bag of potatoes. So you're not going to use all of them. You're just going to use a few of them. And a bag of frozen mixed vegetables for 98 cents. It's like a 1-pound bag. You combine your vegetables, your tomatoes, your cooked potatoes, your tomato paste with another thing of ground turkey that's cooked, another onion that's diced and cooked up, garlic, beef broth. Now you have a vegetable soup with or without the ground turkey. You can leave that out. So for 2 different beef broth dinners, we've now spent $18.17 on those 2. Plus you've got extra baked potatoes. So let's go back and add, just to change things up, give you a different protein source. We'll splurge and get a pound of cheap bacon and a block of cheddar cheese, which you can use some of that cheddar cheese with your vegetable soup just to, fancy it up a little bit. So that's another $8.02. Use those leftover baked potatoes and have bacon and cheese, double stuffed or double cooked baked potatoes. That's another meal and another protein source. So that's at least 5 nights of dinner, which you could, with all that extra broth, you could probably stretch that, maybe buy a little bit more vegetables or a little bit more potatoes or something like that. You could even take half that pack of bacon, cook it up, add the potatoes and some broth and some milk and make a potato soup. So you're not really out any more money, maybe adding some milk to that and some of that cheese. So even add some more broccoli to it for another, $1 or $2. So under $50. Everything that I told you came up to $46.78 plus tax. So even if you added, ooh, cat, out of nowhere. Even if you added a little more broccoli and some milk to that to get a potato soup, or, mashed potatoes, broccoli and mashed potatoes, or a can of cream of chicken soup to make chicken broth with rice and broccoli with some of the leftover pulled chicken and the soup to make like a casserole. Still $50 gives you a week worth of meals plus some leftovers for lunch. Peanut butter and jelly for lunch if you have to. I mean, there's some cheap ways if you really need to get by because you have a lot of bills coming out in that 1 week. Whatever reason, making these broths as your bases is going to power pack that nutrition. And it's just a little bit of time. And like I said, I do a lot of the work in the crock pots overnight and during the day. So I'm really only spending like 5 minutes at a time with them. And then you've got all this nutrition and health benefits packed into that you can add cheap ingredients to get you through a week. You can freeze the broth, the extra, or until you need it. You can can it if you know how to can. You can dehydrate it or cook it down into a gravy and then dehydrate it so it takes less time. There's so many different ways that you can use it and use all these parts and get food for cheap that is highly nutritious. So I hope that helps everybody, and thanks, and we'll see you next week.